Hi, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and I want to show you the Lightning Conductor client-side web part, which was developed under the SharePoint framework for both SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. The Lightning Conductor is a content aggregation tool which can aggregate content using search, using the Graph API, or also using SharePoint lists. The Lightning Conductor has two different configuration modes. There's a simple mode and there's also an advanced mode depending on your abilities. So we're going to click onto configure and first of all have a look at the quick configuration mode, which basically asks us 4 different questions for getting some content returned. The first question is what kind of data do we want to view? So in the drop down here I can select some of the most common requirements such as documents and tasks, events, announcements, etc. And for this particular case I'm going to choose tasks. And then we can choose how we want to refine it. So again, we have some predefined views, but that's not to say that you can't change the filters and the selected columns easily. This just gives you a starting point. So I'm going to select the All Tasks view, and then I can choose where the content is going to come from. So I could just simply have this returning from the current site, which is the SharePoint team site behind this Microsoft Teams. Or we could also go through and aggregate from a specific site collection or from the current tenant, or even using the hub sites and associated sites, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to choose the current site and associated sites. And then the final question is, how do I want to display this content? So I can either display it using the grid view, which I get to refine, or I can also display it as a calendar as well, which gives me a typical calendar that I can navigate through each month and see the tasks associated with this particular site within a calendar. So we'll select the grid view and then choose save. And straight away you can see that we've got the content returned. So I've got the tasks, I've got who the task is assigned to, the task status, priority, due date, and the percentage complete. But what I want to do here is just make that data stand out a little bit more. So first of all, the priority column is something that could do with some conditional formatting. So I'm going to go down to the formatting tab and we'll choose an icon. So in here we'll choose a icon and we'll set the color of that icon to green. And I'm going to position that icon on the right hand side, choose save, and we'll assign that to the high priority status. And then I'm going to add 2 more levels of formatting. So the second one is going to be an amber icon. And we'll set that to normal priority tasks. And then finally, low priority tasks can be set to red. So we now have our conditional formatting showing the appropriate icon so that the priority is more visible. The other thing we can do is go through and add maybe some data bars. So under the formatting option, we can delete the condition and go through and add a data bar. So the maximum value for the percentage column is 1, since it's a decimal. We can choose the color. The color purple is being detected from the current theme applied to the SharePoint site, but we can override that with a different color if we choose. And we can also show or hide the underlying value. So we'll hit save on that, and we now have some data bars applied to that view as well. And of course we can do other things like showing and hiding columns. So we can show columns coming from those task lists. We could also group by those columns and so on and so forth. The other thing we can do is actually have more than one view inside the Teams tab. So this one here, we could go through and change its name to All Tasks, but we could also go through and clone this view, or we could add another view from scratch. So this one here, we're going to call Calendar. And we'll click onto that cog icon again, and once more I'm going to choose tasks, and we want all tasks from the current site and associated sites displayed inside a calendar. So now that we have that built, notice that we've got this drop down where I can now choose between the all tasks or the calendar view for displaying that content. If we want to go into the advanced view, then we can click onto that Add View option again, and we'll click onto the cog icon and choose the advanced mode. And this is where we can go through and select what type of rollup provider we want to use in order to get to our content. We have a little bit more granular control on where the data source is coming from. So here's an example of using search. And then we can also go through and define our columns and our display properties using the advanced mode. So that is the Lightning Conductor. If you'd like to learn more, then please visit www.lightningtools.com. Many thanks.